to bring on Sam White, and this is going to be great, this conversation that you and Jose Luis are going to have. So Sam is actually the director and co-founder of Greentown Labs in Boston, the largest clean tech incubator in the US. It houses almost 100 clean tech startups, I understand. And Sam, I also understand that with being co-founder of the Promethean Power Systems, that you brought on thermal battery technology startups to enable cold storage for perishable foods in unreliable power areas. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to Jose Luis about. We can't have a conference about entrepreneurship without brainstorming some new ideas. Back in the day when we first started Greentown Labs, it was really around necessity. We needed a space to build our first prototype for our first customer in India. And in India, they say necessity is the mother of invention. So we went into this dilapidated warehouse near MIT in Boston, and it was too big for us. We're almost squatting. And so we invited some other clean tech startups to share the space with us. And, we started sharing a lot of things way beyond, tools and engineering ideas. We were commiserating, we were helping each other with grants. We realized that community of sharing everything. I mean, you couldn't bring an investor like Jose Luis to just see you in this space. You would have had to introduce Jose Luis. Here are the other 5 startups in our little community here. And so now we have 100 startups in Boston, about 25 startups in Houston. We just expanded to Houston. And there in our labs, we have electronic space, we have machine shop space, we have wet lab space. Back in the day though, you could get in if you could contribute a drill press, you're in, no problem. Today it's much more difficult to get in as a member. But what I wanted to talk to Jose Luis about was when we recruited our first country head in India, for instance, we went to Harvard Business School and we did some speaking engagements, and we found an Indian national who was graduating from Harvard. 6 months from then, he had a chance to come to our lab, get to know us, get to know the technology before he moved back to India. Now, what I pitched this to the Inter-American Development Bank, IFC, and I'm going to continue pitching it until someone like you, Jose Luis, does this. Universities like MIT are like machines. They're churning out startup after startup, and that is the main feeder into Greentown Labs. There has to be, as David said in the previous presentation, nothing is more important than people. And you have cream of the crop of people from Latin America going to these schools in Boston. There should be an organization that is setting up a link between the Latin Americans who are graduating from these schools before they go back and into investment banking, come to and get to know some of these startups, fund the first 6 months of that person's salary back in Mexico or Colombia, and have that person become the country head, but give them a chance to get to know each other before they move back. What do you think, Jose Luis?
I think I mean, I've seen it already because especially in the West Coast, I've seen programs in California in which there is a Latin department for this relationship between the ecosystem in the US and Mexico, and the talent has been acquired through that type of departments. But of course, there's an opportunity, and actually we're trying to cope that opportunity. We have offices in Austin, because we are trying to be that bridge between the US and Mexico and the rest of LATAM, and that includes programs in which we try to gather post MBAs or postgraduate from university and put them in US ecosystem and Latin America ecosystem. But it's still a big opportunity. As you know, Sam, we have great talent here in Latin America. Our wages are still very attractive for owners, for startups to attract hand labor here in Latin America is still very attractive. To have a very good collaborator with a not that high cost than in the US. So that opportunity is still around. But this gap between the Mexico, Latin America, and the US still has a lot of opportunity. And I think that the result and the idea to have representation of our funds in different schools around the country, that's what we want to do, what we've been trying to do. We teach sometimes in MIT, we teach sometimes in Stanford, in Miami University, and some others. And just to conclude, it's not only in the Ivy Leagues, it's all around the different universities across our country. So at least in Mexico, we do that. So we're trying to do it in the US as well.
Sure. Let me show you guys a little video that kind of encapsulates what Greentown Labs is all about. So I'm showing my age by putting my glasses on. And so here we go. A second, and I'll stop the sharing and then share again. Here we go.
Greentown Labs.
Greentown Labs.
Greentown Labs.
Greentown Labs is
an incubator.
Greentown Labs is
a great place
that brings different people together.
Greentown Labs is a community where a startup can come
to build hardware solutions to clean energy problems.
Greentown Labs.
It's really a community of
like-minded
engineers and entrepreneurs
that are passionate about
solving the world's biggest energy and environmental challenges.
Greentown Labs started sort of an accident.
Greentown actually started with 4 early-stage energy-based clean tech startups that came out of the MIT ecosystem. We basically just needed an inexpensive place to start building some early.
So that gives you an idea of how things started. And now I can go back into the presentation. Hopefully you were able to hear that. I don't know if I can get a response of yes or no.
Yes, we heard it.
Okay, great. So we are the largest clean tech incubator in the country, probably in the world, as Tina mentioned. It was officially founded in 2011, but we actually started in 2010. 40,000 square feet of, 140,000 square feet of machine shop space, office space, wet lab space. And it's not so much clean tech, it's really climate tech that we are focused on. Cumulatively, we have all these companies who have graduated and are currently there have raised over $1 billion, $1.3 billion, and growing. It's an amazing community that attracts investors like Jose Luis and others. And so we've kind of segregated all the startups in these groups, focused on electricity, ag tech and water, transportation, manufacturing, buildings, and resilience. And really, where does Greentown Labs fit in? Well, typically, you have an idea at university, you go through some competitions, an accelerator program, and now you have a prototype that you want to build out into a field prototype. And that's when you come to Greentown Labs to physically build out your hardware, to prove out the physics. And I'm sure Jose Luis will agree. It's easier to sell a dream when physics doesn't get in the way. And Greentown Labs kind of forces you to get through the physics. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why investors have so much faith in the companies like Greentown Labs. We are defying the stats around the numbers of startups that die off. And then they're there for about 2 or 3 years, and they go off and scale into a larger place. Our objective is to touch as many startups as possible. And so how do these companies go on and scale? We felt like, sure, at the beginning we needed sponsors like Schneider Electric, Enel, Saint-Gobain, Chevron, Shell, Veolia. They were contributing money, but today they're active partners. And we believe that it's important not only to kind of subsidize the rent of the entrepreneurs, but there are many examples where these startups are trying out their technologies within the ecosystem that these corporates provide for them. And that is how you scale, by getting into the supply chain of these large corporates. That is really the enabler for a startup to truly scale. And so how do we engage the partners and the startups? Well, here are some examples. Shell invested in Sense. BASF did a proof of concept with NDB Nano. DSM from the Netherlands invested in Watt. Schneider Electric invested in Sense, and as well as Titan Energy. So these are just some examples of how these corporates are actually engaging in the Greentown Lab ecosystems and the startups. And so one of the powerful ways that we do that is what we call Greentown Launch. It's a program. I want to make sure I'm not going over time, Tina. I have about 5 more minutes.
Yes, 5 more minutes.
Okay, great. So the launch program is a program where a company will come to us and say, we want building automation to improve the efficiency of air conditioning. We'll scout the globe, and we'll come down. We'll have 3 to 5 winners and have them go through a 6-month incubation process that accelerates the process of these corporates getting to know the startups. And so we used to do 1 a year. Now we're doing about 5 or 6 a year because they're so important. And I think the reason why it's successful is we kind of force these winners to engage in such a close way, and every week there are milestones that both organizations are forced to reach, and it really is amazing how quickly they come to deals, investment deals or proof of concept deals. And now Greentown Labs has been able to, through the strength of this program, flip this whole program on its head. And now instead of NL saying, we'd like to, do this project, we're saying, well, we believe the most important impact that we can make on the climate in the next 3 years is carbon sequestration. So we are now going to the corporates and saying, this is what we want to do for our launch. Are you in or are you out? And we have that credibility now to have that kind of an impact. And so the last batch of winners for the circularity program that was hosted by BASF and Stanley Black & Decker were these four winners, amazing companies. And so we've recently expanded to Houston. We feel like Texas or Houston is in a energy transition that Greentown Labs can support. A few days ago, there was an article in the New York Times about how Shell is literally changing their business model from oil and gas to renewables. And we're one of the supporting structures that Shell is leaning on to make that happen. And so here's the opening of Greentown Labs Houston. It was a very difficult decision for us to build out a physical incubator that is so difficult to manage, from safety to liability to just the logistics. But we did it because we, again, what we want to do is ensure that we touch as many startups that are going to impact the climate as we possibly can. And Houston is ripe for that. We are right in the middle of a significant transition as we support Houston to transition into renewable space. And so I'll end it there. I know I don't want to go over my time.
Oh, Sam, that is amazing. I mean, you've definitely got a background in building communities, and it's really exciting to see what you all are doing with what you didn't say clean tech, you said climate tech.
That's right. That's right. Clean tech, it was kind of a nebulous word, and it took us years to figure out, no, it's climate tech. We need to figure out how are we going to impact the climate.